after failing the physical test. She hadn't been certain why the driver brought them to work with the old men. Looking back, it seemed as though the driver changed tack at some point along the journey after traveling at least a mile in one direction. The wagon had simply turned a full circle and taken a road in another direction. When the driver was questioned, he explained orders that the runts were to be worked to death with the silvers. Natalia and Bones had labored among the elderly ever since, harvesting snails and mussels in the banks of the Tamar River, just south of the Sultan's own palace, careful not to bring attention to their youth, and accepting the miracle as a gift from Dio rather than question it any further. They took on the role of nurse and caretaker of their little band of old men not long after arriving. But she couldn't live in the shadow of the palace for 7 years and not learn what happened to her parents. There was simply too much she had to make right. Too much to be ashamed of to spend her life rotting in a river farming for mussels. Bones reached the stone wall surrounding the palace first and clasped his hands to give her a boost up. "You'll have to take it at a run. The wall's higher than we expected." Up until now, she and Bones had only seen it from a distance. "You sure you can handle my weight?" Natalia asked, raising a brow. Bones snickered. "Perhaps we ought to ditch this plan you've been cooking up since the day we first met and quit." Natalia had been poised to run, but froze. Their banter had been hiding the reality of what they were doing, but now she couldn't ignore just how perilous, even foolhardy, their undertaking was. "Bones, you know how dangerous this is, right? Your family might not even be here." Bones gestured for her to get moving, but Natalia refused to move. "Bones! Your father works in stone, Nat. We know he's likely inside with the rest of the craftsmen slaves. Your mother will be in there too." "Yes, my family, not yours. You know my family will claim you as their own, but a new family can't erase the pain of losing your own." Natalia knew that hard truth all too well. The truth was, Bones' only family was his older brother, whom he hadn't seen since traveling on the ship. He could be at any of the Sultan's work camps, assuming he'd even survived this long. "You are my family, Nat. Wherever we do together, remember?" Natalia rubbed at the heat welling up in her chest again, refusing to let her fear cloud her vision or her resolve. She took a deep breath and nodded. "Let's do this." Then she ran towards Bones, placing one of her bare feet in his hands, just as he launched her up the wall. She caught the stone ledge with barely more than the tips of her fingers, but years of working with her hands made for strong fingers. She adjusted her grip, then swung a leg up onto the stone wall to climb the rest of the way until she lay flat, looking out over the inner courtyard to ensure the way was clear. The courtyard surrounding the palace sat in shadow compared to the glowing opulence of the white-stoned palace. Several rooms carried the flicker of candlelight, indicating they weren't the only people awake at this late hour. She didn't worry so much for the black-robed guards who worked the Sultan's slaves during the day. No, the guards would never expect a slave to run toward danger. The real threat were the priestesses who made up Zahak's personal enforcers. Natalia had never seen one of the women known in the camp as a priestess, but she'd heard about their ability to wield black magic. She didn't know enough to really even understand what that meant. In her mind, all magic was black, but the priestesses were feared for the pain and torment they could inflict with it, especially the high priestess known as the Serpent. Natalia rubbed at the nagging heat in her chest again, which seemed to burn more as her emotions intensified. "All clear," she whisper-shouted as she reached down to help him. He took off at a run and jumped, pushing off the wall and propelling himself through the air until his hand locked around her wrist. His weight nearly pulled her off the wall, but she held firm and with a grunt pulled him up to join her. They dropped inside the courtyard using a similar technique. Bones lowered Natalia to the ground, and then Natalia reached up to grab his feet and lower him to her shoulders, where he jumped the rest of the way. Bones weighed little more than